Walking through a shaded understory of a closed canopy forest in the North Carolina Piedmont, it's easy to think that the landscape has always looked this way. However, decades of fire exclusion and land clearing for agriculture has shaped the North Carolina Piedmont's landscape into what we see today. If we want to restore some of these open landscapes of the past with higher biodiversity, land managers must use prescribed fire. Historical maps from two early European explorers, Lederer in 1670 and de Lisle in 1718, mysteriously depict central North Carolina as the Grand Savanne. The Piedmont has a rich diversity of heliophytic, sun-loving plant species, including several genera that are associated with the Midwestern prairies. Historical evidence suggests that the North Carolina Piedmont was a patchwork of woodlands, savannas, and small prairies in the uplands, where fire could freely burn, and the less fire-prone closed canopy mesic forests were relegated to areas along rivers and bottomlands. Fires ignited by indigenous tribes shaped the Piedmont landscape for millennia. The Occaneechi, Shakori, Eno, Saponi, and Sisapaha represent a few of the Native American tribes that inhabited the Piedmont during the woodland era around 1,000 to 3,200 years ago. These Native American tribes managed the land with fire to increase forage for big game, make hunting the big game easier, to improve visibility and access, and to increase fruit production in the woodland understory. European explorers and settlers brought disease and conflict that devastated the Native American populations and greatly reduced their influence on the landscape. European colonists then cut the timber and cultivated much of the landscape for agriculture. When the settlers abandoned agricultural fields or logged areas, the process of succession without fire allowed less fire-resistant trees to expand their ranges. Tulip poplar, sweet gum, loblolly pine, and Virginia pine regenerated instead of shortleaf pine. Fire exclusion led to dominance by closed canopy mixed hardwood forests. The sun-loving heliophytes were restricted to roadsides and right-of-ways, or along forest edges adjacent to agricultural fields. Shortleaf pine woodlands were a prominent plant community on the pre-European settlement North Carolina landscape, primarily because frequent fire maintained the open condition and favored shortleaf pine regeneration. Shortleaf pine is a fire-adapted species. It has thick, platy bark, minimal resin production, and produces an abundance of persistent cones, which stay on the branches until the time is right. Shortleaf pine seedlings also grow along the ground, back into the ground, and then back up vertically, forming the unique basal crook structure. The presence of dormant buds underground allows the pine to resprout after a fire for swift recovery when the pine is top-killed. In a shortleaf pine oak woodland, shortleaf grows alongside several fire-adapted oak species, including post oak, white oak, blackjack oak, and southern red oak. A well-developed herbaceous understory of grasses, wildflowers, and low shrubs grows below the sparse tree cover. Since 1980, shortleaf pine forest area has decreased by 53%. Stands of shortleaf pine oak woodlands have declined by 90% since European settlement. As the most widespread pine species in the eastern United States, shortleaf pine serves an important role in many eastern ecosystems. Prioritization of more economically viable species like loblolly pine, along with land conversion for agriculture and fire exclusion, have resulted in this major decline in shortleaf. Without a management change, shortleaf pine woodlands will disappear, along with all the biodiversity they support. Shortleaf pine provides services for many of the same plant and animal species that depend on longleaf pine further south, so its disappearance should hold the concern of ecologists and land managers. There are at least 64 wildlife species, 18 of which are considered rare, associated with shortleaf pine oak woodlands. The diverse understory of a shortleaf pine oak woodland offers a smorgasbord of herbaceous forage and soft mast for wildlife, including northern bobwhite quail, which is a species of conservation concern. The rich understory of a shortleaf pine oak woodland also provides abundant cover and forage for the white-footed mouse and other small mammals. High numbers of flowering forbs attract insects, promoting pollinator populations. The Diana fritillary, star-spangled fritillary, and monarch butterfly are all pollinator species that could be common in shortleaf pine oak sites. Pine warblers and brown-headed nuthatches feast on the seeds from shortleaf pine cones. In the northern portion of its range, the red-cockaded woodpecker, which is federally listed as threatened, can use mature shortleaf pine in the absence of longleaf pine. Broadly, the fire-exposed regions of the southern Piedmont likely burned every 4 to 6 years with low-intensity fires before any kind of human settlement. Bringing fire back into the Piedmont will be critical to restoring shortleaf pine. Without any fire, a process called mesification quickly sets in. As the canopy closes, shade-tolerant trees create a midstory in the forest, shading the understory and inhibiting the growth of small herbaceous plants. These shade-tolerant and less fire-resistant species, like red maple and tulip poplar, drop leaves that remain moist for a long period of time, decreasing the flammability of the leaf litter. Even if a fire ignites, the burn will not be severe enough to knock back the woody growth. This feedback loop makes it difficult for land managers to bring fire back into a forest, which means we urgently need fire to stop mesification if we have the intention to restore fire-adapted plant communities that include shortleaf pine. To restore shortleaf pine oak woodlands, land managers need to implement strategic prescribed burns. Studies have shown that a 1 to 4 year fire return interval will maximize shortleaf pine seedling recruitment. However, delaying the fire return to every 3 to 4 years can allow shortleaf pine seedlings to mature enough to attain fire resistance while also maintaining the biodiverse herbaceous understory. Land managers should also consider fire seasonality. Dormant season fires knock back the woody saplings and shrubs and favor forbs better than early growing season fires. However, any fire is better than no fire in a shortleaf pine woodland. Because the Piedmont is predominantly privately owned, conservationists must work with landowners and locals to halt the decline of shortleaf pine and its associated plant communities. The Shortleaf Pine Initiative is dedicated to working with private landowners to restore shortleaf pine communities. Technical assistance to landowners is focused on prescribed burning, but also timber harvest, targeted herbicide application, mechanical midstory removal, reseeding native ground cover, and managed grazing to promote shortleaf pine oak woodland plant communities. Without open plant communities like the shortleaf pine woodland, a wide array of flora and fauna will disappear from the North Carolina Piedmont. If we want to bring back biodiversity to the Piedmont, fire will have to be a part of the story.